Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to Culz Reviews. We're gonna do a little bit different thing today than just a actual movie. We have done a TV series in the past with Project Blue Book, but we did hit that about a year after it had come out. So we're gonna try a little bit more timely this time with Goosebumps: The Vanishing, which is season 2 of Goosebumps, and that'll lead us into Daredevil: Born Again, which we'll try to do as that one comes out as well. But we figured this was perfect. Goosebumps is something we all knew about. We read as kids, and it looked interesting and it looked something that would be up our alley. So we figured we'd check it out. Today we're going to talk about just episode 1, which is Stay Out of the Basement Part 1, which you can see the classic cover on David's background right there. And yes, we got Nolan, we got David, we got Greyson. You guys should know them by now, but in case, Nolan, you want to tell people a little bit about you and where you first came across Goosebumps?
To get this out of the way, I am a Ghostbuster. um, but no, it's one of those things that I don't know. I think for me and the age that I am, which I think we're relatively all about the same age, so we probably found them about the same time. I don't know, fourth grade, maybe. Getting like actual trips to the library, things like that. But you find these interesting books. There was a whole bunch of them. It was one of those things that they were easy reads. It was kind of cool. You probably see them at the book fair too, the old Scholastic book fair when you never had any money. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things. I've been reading these books for a long time. It's just now that I think about it, I was like, I don't think I've read one in a long time. Just because it's been that long, been busy. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I'd get back to it. Definitely go back and reread some of the classics.
David, what about yourself?
I mean, definitely a lifelong Goosebumps fan. I think it was probably one of the first series that I ever really got into. This and Animorphs were kind of my
Oh, I
big thing
love
as
that one.
kids. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, like this is kind of what set me interested in anything kind of paranormal, that kind of stuff. Definitely helped inspire my love of writing and wanting to do books of my own. All of it kind of goes back to these days. I know Nolan mentioned like the book fairs and stuff. It was the best day ever when the
Oh
Scholastic
yeah.
book fair was at school. You went in and they had like some really cool Goosebump stuff. Like it was awesome. Definitely also part of what attracted me to it for sure was the amazing Tim Jacobus art on all the original Goosebumps. Now, Keegan, you did say this is the original art. This is not. This is a fan
Oh, the
replica.
new
It's
one.
very, very similar. It does,
Okay.
but it's just kind of a more realistic Green Hand. But I thought this one was cool. But I've actually met Tim Jacobus recently. I got an original sketch from him and things that very cool. But anyways, I've always loved Goosebumps. I watched the TV series when it came out. I enjoyed the movie with Jack Black when it came out, and the sequel wasn't too bad. It was a little not as good as the first one, but it was still decent. Always kept an eye on it. I would love to meet R.L. Stein one day. Seems like a very nice guy. Uh, yeah, Goosebumps is a huge part of my childhood, and I've really wanted somebody to do it justice. So I'm excited to see how The Vanishing goes.
I don't know how old he is. Is he still kicking? Is he
He's
still
getting
alive?
up.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
he's still kicking. Yeah.
he's literally. I mean, he worked on this.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
he was like one of the producers and helped out a little bit on some of it. They at least got his blessing, I know, and he's still releasing Goosebump books.
Well,
He's
and that's
81.
70s or something like that right
80.
now? Like
Yeah,
80s?
81.
81. Yeah.
Well, that's
He's
good.
Yeah, he's younger than Stephen King, I believe.
I was gonna say, but the fact that you said that he like signed off on a lot of stuff or like did that, like I think means that it's going in the right direction.
Yeah,
Um,
I know he's not like super involved, but enough that at least this episode specifically, I know he saw this one
yeah,
and had some thoughts on it that we can talk about a little later. But he's definitely still kept informed of the Goosebumps universe.
So
nice.
he just looks younger than Stephen King. Stephen King's actually 77.
Oh wow. He was actually in the Goosebumps movie with Jack Black. He has a
Ah,
cameo near the end. They cross each other in the hallways, and Jack Black says, "Hi, Mr. Black," because since he was playing R.L. Stein, he played Jack Black.
play Jack Black. That's
Yeah,
funny.
and he was the acting teacher at the high school.
Nice.
Once
Nice.
R.L. Stein became the English teacher, so they just kind of swapped there. I thought it was a cute little author cameo kind of thing.
That's fun. We like those.
Grayson, what about you? Where did you first come across Goosebumps?
So I will say, kind of similar. I definitely came more across the Goosebumps more like from the, renting it out from the classroom type of reading book. The ones that have been there for a few years that were worn and read through. But same thing. You always wanted to kind of get the new Goosebumps if you wanted to be, the cool kid because you were reading something scary in elementary school. Obviously, as you grow up, they're not as scary. But anyway, yeah, no, Goosebumps was a huge part of why I've started getting into horror, just themes, and just enjoyed horror stories all the way through my adolescence, from that to creepypastas to just r/no sleep has definitely been sparked from the Goosebumps franchise. And seeing the fact that it's had such a wide reach for such a long time to where it still is relevant enough to make a TV show at the quality that they're doing it right now, I think is a testament to how much of a staple that this has been in American pop culture as a whole for the last 40, almost 50 years at this point. Because he's been publishing since the 80s, I think, or something like that.
92 was the
yeah,
first one. July
it's
92.
about it's around our ages.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, much like everyone else, you come across Goosebumps as a kid. Mine, the first one I saw in the wild, I guess, was Deep Trouble. And I remember it because it had the hammerhead coming up about to attack someone that was swimming. So kind of Jaws themed. And so I grabbed it. And then, I mean, even to this day, I can remember Werewolf of Fever Swamp.
That's a classic one, yeah.
Yeah. And then Welcome to Camp Nightmare. I can still remember as a kid reading those to this day. It stuck with me. So, I mean, it's a classic. I haven't seen the new movies. I do remember the old kind of cheesy movies that they try to make off of the episodes. So at some point we got to watch those. That'd be kind of
they made older movies.
Yeah, made for TV movies.
I think that was just the TV series.
Yeah.
There was a series. It was not movies.
You could buy them as single movies, is how I remember, because I'd go to Blockbuster and they'd be there as just one movie to rent.
Interesting. They would have both episodes or whatever to tell the story.
Yeah. If it was a two-parter, it would have both or just the one. Because they had Deep Trouble 2, and it was just the one. I remember.
Sorry, it just made you bringing that up made me think the one that sticks with me a lot is it was from the original show called Vampire Breath, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Was one of the I for some reason that one stays in my brain rent free. I think about it all the time, and I kind of wish there was a vapor potion thing or whatever that I can just and then become a vampire and get fangs or whatever. So yeah, sorry, it just my ADD brain just was oh hey, I remember stuff like that.
No, did any of you guys get into Goosebumps 2000, or what was the other Goosebumps series that he kind of did?
So I read all the regular Goosebumps, and then I've also read a lot of the Choose Your Own or Give Yourself Goosebumps. Yeah. Where it was one of the first ones to really do the go to page whatever for this decision, or
Choose your own adventure type.
Yeah, those were really fun. I think those are some of the modern-ish day, I guess, examples of those, because I know those have kind of fallen out. Goosebumps 2000, I think I read just a couple of those and then kind of fell out of it because it just didn't have quite the same charm, I think, as the original Goosebumps. I mean, some of those are just so good. I love Horrorland is one of my absolute favorite stories. I love that. Of course, Haunted Mask, Monster Blood, a lot of those classic ones, and even the stuff Let's Get Invisible, How I Got My Shrunken Head. There's just so many fantastic stories in the original ones, and the 2000s weren't bad. I did read a decent amount of them, but I don't think they were quite as good. If the originals were a 10, these were 8 and 9s.
That Let's Get Invisible one, was it bubblegum that they chewed to
no, it was a mirror that had a light, and when you turned the light on, you vanished. But then it turned out that they were basically being put in a parallel mirror world, and when they would come back visible, it was fine at first, but then the mirror versions of themselves started to take their place in the real world instead.
So what I'm hearing is Goosebumps started the mirror universe, first of all.
They honestly, if you read the original Goosebumps, there's so many things that you could see there that maybe inspired stuff that we have today a lot more of. And in my opinion, R.L. Stine does better twists than M. Night Shyamalan any day.
M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. Yeah, I can't trust that guy anymore. He's broken my heart too many times. Like at this point, I think the twist now would be if he just told a straight movie without a twist. Like that would be the biggest twist to me.
That
I'd
was
be like,
the
oh my
twist.
god, there's no
There
twist.
was no.
I am blown. My mind is blown right now. There's no twist. This is crazy. That's how I would feel about that.
The
But
doctor was actually still alive.
right. Well, it's just one of those things. Okay. I was thinking about it because I was like, I remember a book from when I was young. I just can't remember which one it was, but that's how they would that's what it was. Is like, that's how they would go invisible. Like the kid, they gave him like a pack of gum, and it was like each piece would make you invisible for like an hour or something like that.
There
I
were
was
some
like,
crazy ones like Chicken, where the kid eventually turned into just a giant chicken.
Did
Just
you guys ever read Say
stuff.
Cheese and Die?
That's
was,
one of that and the Cuckoo
I love
Clock
that
of
one.
Doom are two of my like favorite, like lesser talked about ones.
I love
But
the sound
Yeah,
of
Say
Cuckoo
Cheese and Die.
Clock of Doom.
I love that Say Cheese and Die got like 3 different ones. I think they're going up to like 4 maybe.
I will say, even though the ending's pretty hokey, if you read, it's like Camp Jelly Jam or something like that, or like whatever
With
that
the
is.
counselor all smiling,
Yeah.
like really
Dude,
creepy
that
out.
one, that freaked me out even as a kid. It still freaks me out to this day. That just, I
And
looked at like the
then-
actual cover of the book, and I just felt the chill just go down my spine, and I'm like, huh, I'm a grown ass man, and that's still right there.
And it still
And then
gets me
I
a little bit.
really love the one, the Ghost Next Door, where the
Yes.
girl figures out that her next door neighbor is a ghost and everything, and then you find at the end that she's actually the ghost.
She's the ghost.
Yeah, that
That's
she died at the
The
beginning of
Sixth
the
Sense?
book.
Anything sound familiar?
But
Anybody?
it's cool because it's from her point of view of like the ghost, not knowing that she was dead, and it's like, whoa.
So bringing up there, because you were talking about the mirror one or the invisible one where they use the mirror. I'm thinking about it now, and like it's one of my favorite shows that I've watched in the past, I don't know, 20 years. Anybody else other than me see Warehouse 13?
Yeah, no, it has a lot of. I could definitely see a lot of the
all
artifacts
the way through.
being stuff that were, yeah.
And I'm thinking about it now because you literally saying that, because I don't think I read that one with the mirror.
It's
thing or
good.
whatever.
If you look up the cover, it's a
Yeah.
giant mirror, and it's just a kid. Like I believe he's like half there, half not, and his clothes
Yeah.
are the only thing. Like, yeah, it's cool.
Interesting.
He's like in a red and yellow striped shirt or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a bright like red or orange kind of thing, and it's yeah. All the covers. Like I said, Tim Jacobus is one of my
Fantastic,
favorite
yeah.
illustrators. That guy nailed it so hardcore. Like he went so hard on those books, and he didn't have to.
That's what draws you in, right? It's like you look, you go, okay, go Goosebumps or whatever, and then like you pick it up and you're like, oh wow, like this cover looks like super cool. Like I wonder what this one's about. Like that's what drew you in as a kid, was like the art was just awesome.
I mean,
If it
yeah.
didn't-
So
You had no soul, you know what I'm saying? Like
when I met him, I had him sign my first print of The Haunted Mask, because of course that's just an iconic cover. So he signed the inside of that, and then I got him to do. He had an original drawing that he did of the old curly mascot, the skeleton guy with the mohawk.
yeah,
That was on like all of that. But what I really wanted, and he didn't have it, and it's super hard to find now, they made a coffee table book that is all of the covers together really nice in a super nice book that I really want to get someday. I feel like having that and then having him sign that would be amazing.
amazing. I
Yeah.
agree. But yeah, it's just there's an episode specifically where I think they literally like swap because they were using like a mirror, and like they, you know,
That's
the good one,
probably the yeah.
it's trapped inside the mirror or whatever, and because there was like a light
and
with
it's like
a disco
and
ball,
everybody
and
in the mirror
it just-
world's like the evil versions.
yeah, so he comes and it's like the evil version of Pete, and you're like, oh, so like you saying that, I go, oh my god, like this sounds really familiar.
I mean, honestly, I could see like the writers of that, or even stuff like Doctor Who and stuff these days. I would not be surprised to find out they grew up reading Goosebumps as well,
Oh yeah,
and kind of got some influence off of some of these, because they're such good stories. Like R.L. Stine is a master storyteller.
yeah. I don't know how you can. You're exactly right though. There's just a lot of that, and he just made so many. Like it's hard to like not have any influence, right? Like with whatever it is, just because it's one of those ones that dude really just made a lot of different books with a lot of different stories.
Like I mean, as I mentioned, one of my huge obsessions growing up was Animorphs. Like I love those so much.
Good
One of my
ones.
all-time favorite stories. And those came out once a month, and it was really exciting going to the bookstore to find the next one. But I do know K.A. Applegate, who wrote those, there's a really good chunk of like 30 of the books or whatever that are all done by ghostwriters, because she just couldn't do it. However, as far as I know, R.L. Stine wrote every single one of those books. Even as quickly as they were coming out, it was all him. Which
That's crazy.
incredible. Yeah, that is so impressive. And it was never the same twist. It never felt kind of, we talked about before how some writers, it feels like the same characters each time. It felt like different kids, different stories. I never felt like he was phoning it in or that it was just a bunch of Mary Sue's or anything. And I think a big part of why Goosebumps is successful is he never wrote down to the kids. Even though it was a younger audience, he respected them as individuals and that they'd be going through things of their own and stuff like that, and didn't ever make it condescending.
And to that point, David, like to do that for the same way, like for 30 years without ever just taking your writing down to talk to him just to make it easier, 1000% a testament just to the quality of the art of it. God, I can't talk, to the author that he is. Oh, man.
Exactly. Yeah, the fact that he never phoned it in, that he never just said, whatever, they're 10, they don't care, like, good on him, man.
Well, speaking of R.L. Stine, did any of you read the Fear Street books?
A couple of them, but it's been so long since I read those, I don't even remember which ones I read of that.
I read a couple of them. I don't think they're as good as Goosebumps. I know they were for the older audience, so they should have appealed to me more, but it's just not as fun.
Yeah.
Even the series, I mean, I watched the Netflix ones they did. Like, they're not bad. I think that it's still interesting, but I don't think they're nearly as good as the Goosebumps world.
Yeah, and like you said, we saw that, I think, even a little bit with Goosebumps 2000, where they're good, but they're not Goosebumps, which is hard. I mean, it's I don't know, it was so in the public zeitgeist for everybody. We all knew about it. It's made franchises at this point with TV series and movies because it's had the sequel at least. And you can recognize certain characters even if you really didn't read that book. Like, what's the doll that was in the movie?
Slappy.
Yeah.
Slappy. Sorry.
So like people recognize that's from Goosebumps.
Oh,
even if they had
just like the haunted mask.
Mm-hmm.
Like that green iconic with the glowing eyes, like everybody knows, like, oh, that's a Goosebumps thing.
Yeah.
What I really wish, being a big Disney fan like I am, I so wish that I would have gotten to go when they had the Goosebumps attraction at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which was MGM Studios at the time, and they had like characters out there walking around, like they had a whole thing. I don't think it was there very long, and I probably wasn't old enough at the time that I would have really appreciated it like I could have now, but man, I wish Goosebumps would get like a really cool theme park ride or something. That'd be amazing. Or hell, make Horrorland real.
Just the whole thing. Just make Horrorland.
Dude, Horrorland was like, as a kid that loved theme parks and stuff like that, was such everything I loved. Like, it was crazy.
I guarantee you it probably would work and it would be super awesome, and like it would get a lot of traction, a lot of people, I'm sure.
Except for the part where people die on the rides.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, maybe let's skip the like death on the rides part. But
maybe not as realistic as that.
And some of them were ridiculous. Like there was a slide that you had to pick like 1 through 10 of which one you were going to go down, and if you picked the wrong one, the slide just never ends. You're just going to eternally be sliding.
This is the slide that never ends. Yeah, that sounds. I mean, that sounds like a semi-fun way to spend eternity. At least you're doing something fun, right? It's not like you're it's not like you're Prometheus and you're just bound to a rock with this giant bird coming to eat you every single day. I would definitely probably take the infinite slide over that if I had a choice.
If I had to pick.
You're not thinking of the friction, Nolan. The friction.
Oh man, I didn't think about the friction. That's tough. I'm gonna run out of denim soon.
But cheeks.
That's funny.
Honestly, if Universal's going to be doing like Halloween Horror Nights, Disney, now that they have the rights to Goosebumps, they could do something like, Horrorland as an overlay for some of the park. Especially if they do that for Halloween as it is anyway. They could start doing that like annually as a theme if, they had any actual imagination.
1000%. And I was going to say, because like that's what I was going to say was that like Knott's Berry Farm does their, Not Scary Farm.
Not Scary Farm, yeah.
Every year. And like lots of people go to that and they show up and they have all of the, like the scare actors and all that kind of stuff come out. And like, it's like super popular and people love that. So like
I
Grayson's
guarantee
right,
you,
I
if
imagine like
Disney
they'd
if
have a
Disney
hit.
picked a park, like if they turned Hollywood Studios into a Goosebumps park for 1 month out of the year, it would be packed every single day,
1,000,000%.
Mhm.
easily.
Like, and then just like the amount of stories they could pick from like using like the, the replica of the Chinese theater or even Main Street Hollywood. They could do a whole bunch of stuff from all those books that we have available, which I wish they would be more imaginative and actually do. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
All right, so Disney, if you're listening, there's some good ideas for you. But yeah, so obviously we're here. We're going to be talking Vanishing, episode 1, Stay Out of the Basement, part 1. Which, to be 100% honest, I think I probably heard rumbles that they were making this series, but I really didn't know it was coming out until David mentioned it. So I was glad he did. And yeah, I'm excited to see how the series turns out. Have any of you binge watched it yet?
No, oh, Grayson
I
just watched
think-
all of it already.
Yeah, I zoomed through that real quick.
I think I'm on like episode 5 or something. I'm pretty close. I'm about halfway.
What about you, Keegan?
I'm only episode 1 right now.
Okay, well then I guess me and Keegan are the two-man wolf pack over here. We're just watching this episode by episode. Yeah, I
Like
watched
the original plan was
one last
like
night.
binge and then just go episode by episode. So I'm like, all right. Then Keegan's like, hey, we're doing it once a week, and I'm like, all right, I already watched all of them anyway, so we're good to go.
Well, it's one of those ones like I want to watch it like as we're what I mean, like as we're gonna do it, like kind of like a weekly thing or whatever. That way it's kind of like fresh in my brain and then like go from there. But yeah, that's who already binged it. I was also not expecting like because we were talking about like just like Goosebumps, I was like, oh, okay, cool. It should be like the old show or whatever to some degree. And I was like, those are like 20-minute shows. This will be quick. And no, these are full 45, 50-minute episodes. I was like, oh man, that's a lot of Goosebumps. I like it. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, because I was totally expecting them to have, like I said, 20-minute episodes again or whatever, right? But yeah, so I was like pleasantly surprised when I was like, oh, this is like a full like
It's like an actual show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say the quality on it is really pretty good, at least from episode 1. I haven't delved too far. At first, I was a little nervous because I think the actors they had playing the first set of kids was okay, but not great. The main kids that we get to know, like Schwimmer's kids, much better actors. That group.
What are their character names, Keegan?
One of them kid too.
Kid 1, blonde kid.
Cece and Devin.
I think you're lying, David.
But that's the actor, their name in the show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The character.
Yeah,
names.
Cece Brewer, Devin Brewer.
Oh,
Yeah, Anthony Brewer is David
I'm not asking
Schwimmer.
for the actor names.
Well, no, that's their names. Because David Schwimmer's character is Anthony Brewer.
I will start off by saying since we're talking about names, I do very much appreciate that Dr. Brewer, Mr. Brewer, that is the name that he had in the original book, Stay Out of the Basement. They did take that same name. It wasn't just some random. They did change the kids' names and everything, but he, at least, that was his name in the book. I have a little bit of a problem with the series in the same way that I did with the last season. They title every episode after one of the classic books, after, one of the things, but it doesn't at all give you the whole story of that. It's just basically like an element of this will be like, this was inspired by that. Because if I had to say, like, this whole season basically is Stay Out of the Basement. The storyline keeps going. It does not finish in part 1 or 2. It continues on and more stuff gets roped in, but it's more of a season arc as opposed to this is Stay Out of the Basement. It's not.
And that's what I was gonna say because I perused through the rest of the episodes and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, huh, okay, like and that's fine that you can keep the same actors, right? Like that's not my issue here. I mean, they do it with what was the on FX. The
American Horror Story.
You know what I mean? They, for the most part, they keep a lot of the same actors or whatever. It's just a different, story every season, which I loved. I was like, oh, that's kind of fantastic. I'm with David on that. I thought that's what it was gonna be. Was like, oh, okay, so this first and second episode are gonna be you Stay Out of the Basement. The third one's gonna be, whatever, invisible, mirror or something like that. I thought that's what it was gonna be, and you just use the same like actors or actresses like throughout the whole like series, and I would have definitely been okay with that, and that's cool. But I was like looking and I was still seeing, and I was like, oh, this just looks like it's going to be a continuation of, well, don't go in the basement, like that, just like the whole time. So I was like, huh. I was like, I guess they're just doing a whole.
It's kind of like they did. I'm guessing you didn't see season 1.
Season 1 of
Goosebumps that came out last year.
No.
So in that one, they did the same thing where it was like one like setting, one set of kids, all that. And each episode was a different story. And it kind of incorporated those classic stories into the main story in a different way each episode. So like Say Cheese and Die was in there. And in that episode, they found a camera that when it took a picture, it showed something bad happening and then it would happen, It put it in there. It worked them all together into the narrative of the big overarching. So they've kind of done the same thing here. Last season, it was a completely original story. This one, it's taking a little bit more as Stay Out of the Basement as the overall story, but they've added some of their own elements, like the kids disappearing at the beginning, all that kind of stuff. So that all ties, because I guess The Vanishing is kind of the overarching story.
Interesting.
So, and I'm fine with them doing that. It makes it kind of an anthology, but not really. But I think the way they're going to do it is each season is going to stand on its own is kind of what it looks like, because there has been nothing so far that I've seen that ties it to the last season, even though that season landed on a cliffhanger, but whatever.
Well, you said it was an original story too, right? So
yeah, well, it had a lot to do with like Slappy and stuff of all that.
Well, you guys know how I feel about cliffhangers leaving the
But
season
I just kind of thought that it might have gone, like you said, I was kind of expecting like the traditional Goosebumps show, the first one, where each episode was its own story and it stood on its own.
Well, which I think would be great.
I think it'd be good if they did it like Black Mirror style, like bring in different big names and stuff for each episode, and do like an hour and a half.
It's a 45-minute to an hour show. Like you could definitely do because let's be real, like the Goosebumps books aren't huge. It's not like it's a like giant novel or whatever. You can definitely do, I think.
If I can read the book in 30 minutes, you can make a TV show of it in an hour.
In an hour, you have more than enough time. You know what I'm saying? Like you're exactly right. So yeah,
I'm okay. Agree. I'm okay with the longer narrative. That's fine. I don't have anything against that, but I don't see why they're entitling it. Like one of my favorite Goosebumps books is Monster Blood. We haven't gotten there. We'll talk about it later on, but I was super disappointed with how they did it, and it had literally almost nothing to do with Monster Blood the way we know it.
Same.
It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, I get the element. I get the element that it was like inspired, and I guess I can see it, but it was almost nothing. Like if I would have watched that on my own and they would have been like, what are you going to name it? I would not have said Monster Blood.
That's not what you would have said?
No, they never even, like Monster Blood's never even mentioned. Whereas in the book, it's a product. Like he literally gets a can called Monster Blood and then everything that happens. In this, had like nothing to do with it. Everything in this whole season is tied with Stay Out of the Basement. It's all this kind of ongoing story.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I have no problem with that, but I wish that they wouldn't kind of cannibalize the other stories just to tell little fragments of that in this bigger one. Just focus on the main story. You don't have to do like Keegan, you mentioned you remember Camp Nightmare or whatever. That's one of these.
Yeah.
And I already know what that's at least referring to. It's not going to be anything like the actual Goosebumps book. It will be nothing like it.
Mm-hmm. Which is too bad because that's one that really stuck with me.
And that would have been a great season of its own.
Yeah.
Just like a sadistic camp that kids are going. You could have told an entire story just right there. And then maybe incorporate some of those other kind of outdoor monster, like maybe even like Fever Swamp or something like that into that like Camp Nightmare season.
Well, is like, because I know Haunted Car is the title of one of these, but is that's from the original or is that from Goosebumps 2000?
I'm not sure, but I bet you could find a computer and look that up.
Yeah, well, every time I found it was Goosebumps 2000, so I was like,
it might be. That one never really left an impression on me as much, and it's really kind of stupid the way it happens in this, but there is a haunted car, so.
So Rubber?
Oh yeah, it's Goosebumps 2000, Keegan. So it's
okay.
Yeah,
that's what I thought because I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I thought they were old.
Well, I mean, at this point, Goosebumps 2000 is still over 20 years old.
Yeah.
So it is still definitely pulling from the past.
Well, yeah, But I just, it was strange that they were kind of mixing the two. But I'm okay. I don't know. Would you have been okay if they maybe like took little pieces from some of the, maybe not the bigger books, David, to implement in one of the bigger books?
Yeah, no, I have no problem with it, but I'm just saying I wish that some of these stories would have had more room to breathe and be more like the actual books, because if you're doing it this way where you're trying to incorporate a bunch of the different ones into one story, they're just not going to have their chance to be that story.
The overlap doesn't do it justice, if you will.
Exactly. Like I mentioned, the Say Cheese and Die episode from last season, that could have also been its own season, but like a Final Destination type thing.
Well, even as
just kind of being incorporated into this.
I agree, though. I think there are like some books that were like a little bit better than others that you could have like a whole season built around. You know what I mean? Like there's
like the Haunted Mask probably could have been its own entire story of things happening.
Yeah.
And instead it got butchered last season. I liked the last season. It was fine, but it was a terrible episode, a terrible interpretation of that story.
Well, I mean, as Nolan brought out, if this was to be more like, American Horror Story style, like where they pick the stories that are actually, season-long worthy stories, that would be something worth, investigating. Like Camp Nightmare, like, The Vanishing, or just any of those other, like, actual super deep, like, even, like, Night of the Living Dummy, that could be a whole, story, like, arc in and of itself, because there's 2 parts. Or at least leave on the cliffhanger like they did, as you said, in the first season. And then they could honestly make like a whole season where they do B-movie type, plot lines where like we have a whole story or a whole episode dedicated to, Monster Blood, and making it like The Blob or something like that. And then, kind of make it like a 50s drive-in movie anthology series, like season where each one's just one of those storylines made into that. And then they go back and forth like American Horror Story kind of did, where it pays homage to the classics and the actual stories themselves while giving it a little zhuzh to make it, fit a theme of the season.
Yeah, like I was so upset last season when the season finale was Welcome to Horrorland, and they never even went to a theme park.
They never went to Horrorland? Yeah,
that's
you can't do that. Like that's just that's unacceptable behavior right there.
Yeah,
it's almost Luke Skywalker's going to be a Jedi.
The title.
I would almost rather them not
name
any of the books and just be like, it's a Goosebumps series, and then just have items inspired by it in there or whatever. That's fine. But don't pull me in by making me think I'm going to see this classic story, because it's not there.
That. Exactly.
I mean, that's literally what we've been getting for the last 7-8 years with almost everything. Oh, hey, we're going to give you this. That's not that. Don't try to get me here on false pretenses, please.
We'll see what they could even do too is if they were to still have R.L. Stine involved, talk to him, but make your own brand new story for a season. Don't just vulturize those old storylines just to get people to watch it. Because at the same time, if people love Goosebumps, they will still show up no matter what age. It's one of those franchises like Sonic, like Star Wars. People will show up no matter the decade, no matter what age they got introduced to these. They will be there to at least see how they interpret these stories or if they have anything new to add. So add something new.
I mean, 1,000% correct. I mean, that's half the reason why we show up to whatever it is, or why we get excited about products or whatever, right? That these companies are
out with. Which I'll say, that is what they're doing. This is totally a new Goosebumps story. I'll give them that. But it's heavily taking elements of the classic stories, which is great. But let me know that's what you're doing. Don't gaslight me.
Don't tell me it's something and then it's something it's not,
Just don't be like, yeah, look, no, he's wearing that same shirt that he wore in the book, so it's the same. No,
it's not. Just because Master Chief is wearing plastic armor and looks like Master Chief doesn't make this a Halo show, okay?
Yeah.
Well, Nolan, you're being a little bit of a bigot right now, right?
Am I being a bigot? I'm sorry.
You're showing your bias right now, buddy.
My bad. I didn't mean to bring in such hate and vitriol into this podcast. Apologies.
So one thing I do want to say, especially about episode, or sorry, go ahead, Keegan.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you want to run us real quick through the synopsis of what episode 1 is?
I can do it if you want me to. So obviously episode 1, it starts off with The Vanishing more than anything else, but uses "Don't Go Into the Basement" as the tagline. With that, we get introduced to, I forget the characters' names, but a group of kids in the 90s, which gets introduced with the Beastie Boys. So automatic W in my book. Made it a 9 out of the gate. But these kids go down or go into what they we will find out later to be a title of another Goosebumps story, but we will not get into that before due time. But
for now, we just see it's like a subway station or something, right? Like some kind of
like a base or something. Yeah.
Something abandoned.
Yeah. Anyway, so they go down there. They find just this mysterious. They have like a whole bunch of horror tropes where the younger brother shows up out of nowhere. Older brother tells him to go home. Then all of a sudden, the older brother gets enveloped in a goo, and then we cut to title card 2024. Introduction of the kids coming down off the subway. They run into their dad, picks them up, talks about them staying there for the whole summer. Gives them the tagline of the episode: "Don't go in the basement." Get introduced to the whole cast of characters that will be introduced and developed throughout the series. And then I cannot remember where the episode ends, to be honest with you, but I know it's
they go visit the mom, Brewer's mom, who's in the like old folks home / like mental ward, whatever they want it to be, because she's having these like breakdowns where she's saying Maddie, who is the older brother that died, and the one his son, Mr. Brewer's son, and what's his name? What's the kid's name?
David, right?
Denver.
Devin.
No,
Devin.
His name's not Denver.
I was like Denver. Devin.
Oh, it's Devin. So he kind of gets kind of affected by the black goo, but not fully. He doesn't get enveloped or vanish or anything like that. But when he goes to talk with the grandmother, she like goes into another one of these kind of like fits, and that's where it kind of ends off. As well as we see kind of the infection start to take over Mr. Bird, played by David Schwimmer.
What I was going to say beforehand is that I will say the soundtrack for the entire series on point.
Okay, so because you got a little bit farther than I did, obviously, Grayson. I was going to ask because it's one of those ones that I was like, in the first 10 minutes, I hear two songs that I like. You know what I mean? Obviously, I freaking love the Beastie Boys. Like that's one of my favorite groups of all time. But it was just one of those things that, and then literally the next song they use after that is the song that I've beat to death this year, just listening to, because it's one of those ones that actually makes me feel good and makes me feel pretty happy. And it's boppy and I like it. The $1 Million Baby by Tommy Richmond or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of those ones that I was like, man, I was like, I wonder how much they used on the music budget, because they've got a lot of bangers in this one. Like even
it's a lot.
That's what I mean. I was like, damn, that's a lot of these. Because you know what I mean, most of the time they use original scores and things like that because it conveys emotion and all that kind of jazz. But like, yeah, I was like, wow, that they're actually using a lot of like popular songs.
Dude, it's a classic Disney theory, or not theory, but just God, I can't remember what that word is. Anyway, just like the formula, that's what I'm looking for. Formula is the word. Classic Disney formula. They have one pop song, maybe two, draw you in, but then the rest of it's just regular score, teeny bopper actors, all that fun stuff. But they get you roped in with the music they have the rights to kind of build the scenes here and there.
Build it. Yeah, it's because it was one of those things that I was like, and I say this mostly because they don't, at least I don't see it too often. I think like, I don't know, I would say She-Hulk is an example of that, of like using a like popular artist at the like right now in their like prime / kind of thing for like the show. You know what I mean? Most of the time you get a lot of the older stuff, right? Like ones that have been out for a while, things like that. But I was like pleasantly surprised that I was like, yo, this song came out like 4 or 5 months ago. Like this is recent. This is like very, very recent music. And most of the time that doesn't happen, right? Like I said, a song usually has to be out, or an album or whatever, for maybe a year. I mean, a little maybe a little shorter than that. But I was like, dude, this song got super popular.
This is like it's like 2024 music.
Yeah. And so I was like, that's really recent. That's crazy that this is already like in the show. Because I don't imagine that they didn't. Well, I guess you could always just put the music over it. You know what I mean? Like in editing and all that kind of jazz, like later. But I was like, wow, I'd imagine they shot this a while ago. So it's like, that's impressive that song is already in there. Mid shooting or whatever, right?
Yeah, I'll say like the more you watch the show, the more you will be like, okay, these are some bops. These are good ways to introduce the show, or at least start the episode, or like There is a few misdirects with like some of the music that they use from modern day that kind of get you, in the feels, and then cut it off with just either a twist or a jump scare, or like actual development that continues the story. So I think it's while it is recent, they use it really to their advantage in this
They
series.
use it well. I was gonna say, yeah, and you know how I feel about music, man. I feel like it's one of those things like music really,
It can make or break a show.
It can make or break
Absolutely.
a show, or a movie. You know what I mean? It really does complete the project. Having whether an original score, like I said, imagine Star Wars without the orchestra and Star Wars music. Like it's just like, oh, it's less fun. It's less intense. When you don't hear Duel of the Fates when Darth Maul comes out, you're like, oh, it's just a red dude with red lightsaber. Okay, cool. But that music starts and you're like, oh, it's about to go down. Like I'm pumped now. Let's go. Oh, yeah, it's just like, oh, hell yeah. So music makes, can really make or break a project, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, 100%. We've seen studios try to copy other studios with how they've used music before. And so it's also about the songs you pick, not just picking a song because it's popular, it's good, but picking the song that actually fits what's going on in the movie or the TV show or whatever at that time.
Yeah.
Because you can't just throw on hits to throw on. They got to make sense. We saw that maybe with Suicide Squad, the original one, where they just kind of threw in all those songs and you're like, it doesn't
They're just
really
like,
make
oh, this
sense.
is popular. You like this song, right?
These are popular artists. Like this doesn't really make a lot of sense in places. Because you're right. Like in my brain now, I forever associate the Immigrant Song with Thor. Like because that's like just a perfect use of like that song for a Viking god when he's about to do some cool shit. You know what I mean? I was just like, that's well played. That's almost spot on, perfect for what you could possibly ask for when you bring a classic song that most people that a lot of people know or whatever, right? And then you tie it to something or like somebody. So like in my brain now, Thor is forever synonymous with Led Zeppelin. So it's yeah, it's one of those things like you can do it really, really right sometimes, and then well, like you said, you can do it really, really wrong.
I will say the one song that I really do feel like was really out of place on this was I don't know if you've seen the music video for Littlefoot Bigfoot from Childish Gambino. That is in this series, and it is if it really kind of took me out of the scene. I'm like, there's no way they're really playing this.
They're really using Childish Gambino right now.
Yeah, I'm like, this is really happening. They're really playing this in this scene. Wild.
That's well, and I was gonna say that's just a wild use of Gambino, anyways.
Right.
Like, mostly not just because like a lot of his songs are, you can't really use them for that. You know what I mean? Like it might make place or it might be in place with like Atlanta, you know what I mean? Like to some degree or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things like if you were to tell me like Childish Gambino song is in Goosebumps, I'd look at you like you're a goofball. Like no,
100%.
Yeah,
like it's literally some dude's like riding on a
land
moped
at the
in one of the
airport.
scenes and it's playing and I'm like, why is this playing while he's on a moped?
Yeah,
No.
such a random call.
They landed at an airport. They're going through customs, and they're playing "This Is America."
Exactly. Like,
I mean, that makes sense
you're setting the scene
to some degree if you're in America. Like, well, this is America.
Well, they're not wrong. We are in that country.
We are America.
It just feels criminal to use that song this way. I'm like, this isn't the right way to use this. This feels wrong.
It's not how that works. Yeah.
Well, let's go into the acting in at least episode 1. Nolan, how did you feel about the actors? Because I know there's the two different sets of kid actors, the ones at the beginning and then the main, as well as the adults in the kind of modern setting. What were your thoughts there?
Honestly, I liked them. Like everybody so far, like I haven't been like, that's out of place or that's kind of weird or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's, because you have some people that like they show up and you're like, I don't know, I'm not really feeling that. Whatever they're doing, not feeling it. And I haven't gotten that feeling so far from either of them. It's one of those ones, but I mean, at the same time, it's like first episode of anything for me is usually like you're like getting settled, like maybe trying to figure the character out just like a little bit. So I kind of give it a little bit of grace. You know what I mean? Like on the first episode. But if we're on like, season 3, 5 episodes in, like you better know what character you're playing or your acting better be a lot better than what it was, episode 1, right? So yeah, for the most part, like I think they did a pretty good job. But Monsieur Swimmer, dude's looking rough and old. I will say that it's one of those ones that I was like, wow, he's looking like got some years on him now. Far from Ross.
The post Friends years are being rough on him, that's for sure.
1000%. And it's one of those ones that I was like, to be fair, that was 30 years ago. So, like I can't expect
this is
great
Ross
after
Rachel divorced him, and he's had a decade on his own and got really into plants. Yeah.
I will say the one spoiler I will drop. Unfortunately, Jennifer Aniston does not make a cameo as the divorced mom in this. I was hoping that they would at least show something, but that just was not the case this time around.
That would have been hilarious.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it's one of those things, like, I like the character so far. I don't have any gripes or any like super like nitpicky things, but then again, I've only seen one episode. So like when we come back next week, might have a little more, once we get a little deeper into the show, I might have some picks and some gripes or something like that here and there. But for the most part, it's most of everybody's kind of getting set up and kind of getting, geared up to be whoever they're going to be like in the show. So overall, not bad so far.
David, what about you? How's the acting for you?
I've had no issues. Even the kids at the beginning, I think it was fine. It was very typical 90s movie kind of thing. I know you had problems with it, but I was fine with it. They weren't there very long, and it was good. I think they're fine. I think the kids are, the younger cast is doing a great job, even though they're all in their 20s playing teenagers, as is typical.
I would say part of the course. Yep, part for the course.
Yeah. No, I think they're fine. They're all believable in the parts they're doing. The writing has been fine. Nothing super cheesy. I think he does a good job of being kind of a washed up, absent-minded dad. So I think Schwimmer's killing it. I have no issues. I think everything's good. I don't like the kid that plays the next door neighbor that's dating the one girl that
across the street.
Yeah, I think his name's Tony.
Tony Jr. Or some shit like that.
I don't want to get. I know we're only doing one episode, so I won't go further. But the dude's a douchebag.
Oh well, I mean, you can see that in the first episode.
No, I know, but it don't get better.
Going. It don't get better. Going. Okay. No, I was gonna say. Now that you say that, it made me think of. I will say I didn't like the dialogue, Keegan, between Devin and like the girl when he like first comes back and like meets her or whatever. And it was just one of those things, like the bussin' part, and I was like, you guys definitely could have like wrote something different like there.
But I think that's the point, is that it's supposed to be out of date that he's saying it.
Okay,
like it's not. Yeah, they make fun of him repeatedly in future episodes for using the word bussin'.
Okay, so they're setting stuff, because it was just one of those things that was like.
Yeah, no. The point is that Devin is definitely kind of a dork.
Okay, well.
Yeah. So if it made you cringe, it did its job. It's supposed to. Don't worry.
Okay. Well,
they're not trying to say.
I was like,
yeah, they're not saying that kids actually talk that way.
I was like, oh no, I was like, this is. It's like, this is terrible.
My lord, this is positively not bussin'.
I thought the writing was bussin', man.
bussin'. Like,
bussin'. For real.
Stay out of the bussin' basement. That's the name of this episode. The bussin' basement.
Stay out of the bussin' basement.
That's also going to be the name of our. That's the name of our reading group too. The bussin' basement.
The bussin' basement. Jeez.
Bussin' basement boys.
That sounds like a.
The bussin' basement boys. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
But for me, honestly, I thought one thing I think this episode did really well is it's hard to really kind of, keep people interested while expositing a whole bunch of, brand new characters, new settings, and kind of keeping the movement of the episode going. I think using the scene where they're just kind of like constantly moving, you're introducing new people and just having stuff happen through the scenes was a good way to kind of introduce, the new characters, the new setting, get the actual events, going, and kind of keep the ball rolling without getting too boring or just having, what some people for some reason just arbitrarily do, just having the dialogue speech where you're just in the same room and they're just yapping the entire time. This showed, what the characters do, who the characters are, what they're kind of like. They do kind of develop them here and there with their individual stories through the anthology, but for the most part, they're pretty one note, which is to be expected because it's kind of the way it is in the Goosebumps books too. But just off of the first episode, honestly, I really enjoyed it. the music was great, the acting was great. I think just with the actual performances, everybody's hitting their marks the way they need to. And I think it's really I enjoyed like the actual acting and the writing throughout at least the first episode.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it wasn't that I hated the first cast of kids. Just at parts, it kind of felt
Keegan, just admit you hate children. Just for everyone, let us.
It's okay. Know. You have one. You can say it.
That's serious, huh?
You tried to have your own to change your mind, and it didn't work.
That's funny.
No, so just some of the line delivery felt kind of like stilted. It didn't quite fit or just feel like it worked. But it got better. I mean, some of the original kids, the Maddie kid and the kid that played Schwimmer's character as a kid, I thought did well. Again, we didn't see him for very long. The main cast of kids, I thought did well. They definitely play up whatever character they're supposed to encompass. Like David said, one's more of kind of a nerdy, and then you kind of get like your kind of popular like blonde cheerleader type of character, and then you get your athlete. I'm just saying, there's horror tropes.
Who's the popular cheerleader type character?
Well, I was just saying his sister fits more of the popular trope in the first episode.
She's going to debate camp over the summer.
Yeah, but it's different times now.
No, she's very much the like scholarly, smart girl kind of thing. Not they don't really have a popular girl kind of trope.
Popular hot girl. They don't have a Paris Hilton.
No,
not even
Sydney
a little
Sweeney
bit.
In this series.
Yeah, look, just because nerds have
Sweeney's
friends in today's world, that does not mean that they're not fucking nerds. All right.
Well, nerds have friends.
Well, sometimes they do.
No, I thought Schwimmer himself did really well. I haven't really seen him in too much that hasn't been animated as of recent. Obviously, he was really big in Friends, and then like Madagascar probably is one of his other really big ones as of late. So it was really good to see him there, and I thought he did excellent in the character role that he's supposed to be in. He fits it. And then the actress playing his mom, I thought did really good in that scene. Just being able to flip the switch from talking to them kind of normal and then just having that freak out. Yeah. And I, like Grayson said, I like how when they're talking, they're always moving, be it at like the drugstore where they're kind of introducing characters there, or at the park where they're introducing the majority of the characters. And then there's callbacks here. And like David and Grayson have said, they're setting stuff up here that will pay off later, which I don't know what that is, but I'm excited to find out. So overall, I think it's pretty solid there. Nolan, like cinematography wise, what are you feeling there?
I was actually thinking about that now that you said that. Like, you're right. It's so, and I didn't really think about it until now, till you just said that. There's not a lot of like. Most of the time when you do dialogue, right? Like it's like face, and like it's just a lot of back and forth like that. Like this has, like you're right. It's not a lot of like that. It's a lot of wider shots that are open that have all of them in there talking to each other, and it's one of those ones that like I like that a lot better if I'm being honest, just because it is like it's very like cookie cutter TV when you have that of like this guy's talking and then it's like this guy's face. This guy's talking, this guy's face. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like those close-ups, like you need some of those shots and all that kind of stuff to like fill it out and make it, seem like that person's actually talking. But I do like those like wider shots where they're they bring it out a little bit. They've got like the group and it's just everybody there kind of going through whatever they're talking about. So I'm kind of a fan of that. But for the most part, I think it's shot really, really well. Especially using like younger people and younger actors who are relatively unknown, I guess. Like it's, I think they use them well, in my opinion.
I do like that actually a lot, that they didn't really do any quote unquote stunt casting for any of the younger kids, any of those roles or anything, because they easily could have put a bunch of like Disney Channel type stars, things like that in there easily. but
yeah.
the fact to go with kind of unknowns makes it feel, I think, more like true to the Goosebumps of where it was just regular kids. I like that Schwimmer is basically the only name in the whole series.
When I was gonna say, like, even then, like, for him, like, I think he actually plays that role really well too. Like that,
Oh, yeah.
that dad role. Like, he's just kind of, I don't know if he's got any kids or anything like that in real life, but like, I mean, he's rocking that role. Like, not, I mean, he's kind of a deadbeat, but not really a deadbeat dad. You know,
He's like a dad
out,
that's
he's trying.
he's kind
He's
of a
trying.
bumbling, overstretched dad.
Yeah, it's things aren't
Kind of
working
out
out
of
well
his
for him,
element. You can tell he only gets the kids in the summer.
yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, yeah, I only see these kids in the summer, right? But yeah, I think he does. I think he does pretty well. And then as far as like other things go, like as far as like the way things are shot and stuff, I don't think I have anything. I don't think I have any gripes about the effects either. I think everything's pretty.
No,
pretty
the
spot.
effects are spot on.
Yeah, like it was just like, oh, nothing to me has screamed, that's wonky. I didn't like that uncanny valley kind of stuff, or you're like, oh, that's weird. So yeah,
the shots where you're like, oh, that's clearly CGI. Like you had nothing that took you out of what you were watching.
Right, because it was one of those things. Like I think even the like the vines, when they like grab them or whatever, like for the those all look, I think, practical for the most part. You know, I think they wrapped them up in some fake stuff, but it was kind of jerking them around. So yeah, I was just, but yeah, I've never had any. I didn't see anything so far that I was like, I don't like that. So, but it sucks because especially these days, like I've gotten kind of like nitpicky with like shows and stuff. Like after and I'm sure David does this with like writing, right? It's one of those ones like you start getting nitpicky when you start reading things and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
like
for sure.
On it a little bit, you're like, I didn't like that, or I would have changed this, or I would have. So far, I haven't seen anything that I'm like, nah, I didn't like that. Like I would have changed that for sure. And it sucks because like some days it's hard for me to enjoy things just because like I'm thinking about it from like the the filming aspect or like
looking at it from the technical aspects. It's kind of
technical stuff. Yeah, and it's just and it sucks even more too. Like I have a really hard time watching like military movies because I do both. So it's like two lenses at the same time of like prior military and like making films and like doing things like that. So it's like doubly hard to watch them because I'm like, oh, this would never happen. Like, don't get me wrong, like I enjoyed the hell out of Maverick, but I go, yeah, that dude would have been kicked out in 5 minutes. He wouldn't even made it to that jet. Like just all this kind of stuff like here and there. I'm like, oh, this is so unfeasible, like in my military brain or whatever, that this would ever happen. But yeah, it's just, so sometimes I have to look through both of those lenses and it's kind of rough. But yeah, for the most part, I didn't have anything this time. I was like, I actually kind of really like this, like the way things are set up and the way they're shot and just how they're kind of going about it. And yeah, I rather enjoyed it. So
yeah, it could have been significantly worse.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I didn't really know what to expect going into it because I didn't watch any of the trailers or see any behind the scenes photos or anything. And watching, I was like, man, this is really actually a really good production quality. I don't know how big of a budget they had. And obviously, like we've said, they spent a chunk of that on music rights and they had some product placements and stuff in there that they wanted to use. But yeah, and overall, production-wise, it could have gone to the theaters. I mean, that's how I felt. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty decent. I really enjoyed it, and it makes me want to watch the next one, so it did its job.
I mean, it's better than all the Sony Spider-Verse movies put together, so.
Yes.
Accurate.
Accurate.
No, honestly, on the same note, the cinematography, the looks, the act, just all of it's really just done well. And then as more is revealed about the characters and they kind of go through their teen show drama aspect of the show as the series goes on, you kind of notice like the costuming and everything is also really done well to portray the characters and like how they dress, how they would act, all that deep like character stuff that you don't really appreciate until you start going back and watching everything and kind of going over the episodes and like you start noticing those little details. You're like, oh, that kind of makes more sense. Oh, that kind of that does portray that person would wear that in real life if this was their situation type thing, making it a little bit more immersive, so to speak, in the experience.
I do love that because it's one of those things, Grayson, because I have all these questions, right? Like when we film stuff and do all this, and I'm like, okay, like how do we get like as close to like making it look like it's a real production, a real movie kind of thing or whatever, like with our stuff, right? Just because it is, I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at our stuff and I'm like, why doesn't it look like we're shooting, you know what I mean, with a really nice camera and all that kind of stuff? And it's like, how do we get our stuff to look like their stuff, right? Because that's kind of what the goal is, right? You want to put out a good product and have it look like it's, you know, produced well and all that kind of jazz, which is, you know, it's not, because we have like zero budget. But but I was asking like Mike or whatever, and he was like, well, a lot of it is like, sometimes it's the lenses, right? Like sometimes it's, they'll shoot something on a 40,000, like the lens itself is $40,000, and you're like, that's a lens. Like, that's expensive. But that's what makes it look like super good or whatever, right? But he said it's also the costuming. And this is like a one of the things like I've never really thought about, right? Until he said that. That he's like, it's a lot of the times it's the costumes, it's the like the production value comes from that. Is like, you can tell when something's really well made when you, like you said, the characters are wearing it for whatever reason, or it fits like in the scene and it gives you the look that you want, and it makes things look just that much better or that much more professional.
Absolutely.
And like, perfect example is, I don't know if you guys watched the Witcher Origins show.
The animated one?
No, the live action one where it was like the beginning of the Witchers kind of one. It was awful. It had Michelle Yeoh, I think, in it. She was like one of the like grandmaster people. Look, point is, the costuming in that show and like the outfits and everything that everyone's wearing, awful. Like, it looks terrible, and like it really did look like it was like Spirit Halloween, and that right there like can almost completely take you out of the whole show, just because you're like watching it and you're like, this is awful. But you want to see like a good, you know, kind of thing of like costuming. Go watch the original Lord of the Rings movies. They had all of those guys out there in the armor and all of that kind of stuff, and it sells that whole movie. It makes it feel good and really authentic and like in the universe. You know what I mean? It's because you can hear the metal and all it's significantly better sometimes. Like when the costuming can really change a project. It's crazy.
I mean, even to your point too, Nolan, like speaking of like budget projects that do the same thing, Kevin Smith's Clerks, especially Clerks 1, like just the way everybody dresses, it is a testament to who they are, makes it feel even more realistic, because it does make you feel you're in just back east New Jersey, going through the day in the life of people that just live their lives out there.
Absolutely.
Was like with Dante and with God, I'm drawing Randall, that's right. Dante, Randall, and then just having, you know, the introduction of the iconic Jay and Silent Bob, just all that stuff. Just it is a testament to what you can do on a budget while still making characters feel living in the world and separate and have their own identities without having to say a lot. Because it took real life and just put it to the screen, because that's what people know and relate to.
Well, Silent Bob actually says nothing. So yeah, it can really he literally says nothing, Grayson. Like, yeah, so you can do a lot, right? With, you know, just by showing like his outfit or whatever he's got on and all that.
You know that originally he actually wrote Randall to be his part.
I can see that.
That's who Kevin Smith was going to be, but he realized that it was too big a part for him to also direct, but he still wanted to be in the movie. So he was just like, whatever, I'll be Silent Bob.
I'll just stand here next to Jay.
and look how iconic that became.
Oh, and yeah, Jay and Silent Bob it's one of the, I would call it probably the top 10 iconic duos of all time, maybe.
I want to say, I think it was like $35,000 in total. That was it for the movie.
Yeah, it was one of the,
he got that from like maxing out credit cards. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And I was like, that's crazy that
he literally worked at that convenience store.
Yeah.
He
filmed it on the weekends. Like, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, 1,000%. And it's like black and white too, because it also saved on costs for stuff. And I was just like, oh, that's so genius. But it like, thinking about it now, like I couldn't probably imagine watching it in color. Like it would probably like throw me off, like all of the colors, just because that like black and white of that movie is like so iconic.
Well, I'm sure somebody's colored it somewhere, so I'm sure we could experience that. I don't know if you'd want to. I looked up the budget because we've talked about it a little bit. The budget for The Vanishing was $40 million, which is only $18 million than the actual movie got. The movie got $58 million. So not a huge budget, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's
That's a
same.
There was
modest budget.
also way crazier effects and stuff in the movie, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They went way more big budget. This is more realistic in a sense.
Yeah.
Grounded. Yeah.
Definitely a more grounded version of Goosebumps.
But
I
it
think
looks
they,
great though. Like even if it is grounded or whatever, I don't think
Oh,
I've
it
had
looks
any,
fantastic. It looks,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like there's no, I'm like,
Nothing has pulled me out of it because it looks fake or cheesy.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think to that point too, that they have just enough of a budget to create practical enough effects and have a good enough effects team to make it feel realistic for what they do with it. And like, because there is some scenes where they do kind of like, it does feel a little big budgety, monster blood. Anyway, it fits with inside the budget while still making it real, but not, sacrificing the, atmosphere and the immersion for the sake of saving cost.
Well, and they actually gave themselves time between the seasons to actually sit down and come up with the story. And like David said, maybe R.L. Stein's not there all the time, but they've been able to take some of his ideas and make a unique story. I think it did its job. It's, as far as a TV series, it's one that I've really enjoyed. I don't watch a lot of series like that, so it was nice to sit down and just kind of watch a good movie, which was a TV series, because it felt more like a movie than a TV show. But I thought it was really well done.
Yes. I get that feeling too. Like it's one of those ones that if you probably played them like back to back or whatever, like no one would question like, is this a show? Like they'd be like, oh, this is a pretty cool movie or whatever, right? Like if you were to play parts 1 and 2, I'm sure, back to back. So
Well, David, what were maybe some of the references in this one that they pulled from the book?
So if we're just talking about episode 1,
Yes.
they do, I mean, it's almost all straight out of the book in some sense. Of course, the vanishing part is something new. So that beginning part, that's it. But as far as, Dr. Brewer having something going on in his basement, Dr. Brewer, the kids coming to stay with him, all that kind of stuff, straight out of the books. That is like exactly what happened. Now, in the book, it is 2 girls, I believe, who are twins.
oh, okay.
Actually, no, sorry. It's not 2 girls. It is a boy and a girl, but it's different names.
Okay.
So they did change the names of the twins. But it is that they live with their mom. The aunt is having like brain surgery or something like that. So they're going to stay with their dad for the summer. And he's like, the only rule, don't go in the basement. Pretty much, the setup is very, very pitch perfect onto the book. They don't have the other kids. The kids are younger as well. I think they're like 10-ish. So they have none of the teen drama, none of that stuff. It's definitely like 10 to 12, like younger. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell this was meant to be stay out of the basement. I have no problem with that. It's just kind of an aged up, more modern. And of course the setting, because it takes place in like the suburbs of Ohio or something like that in the book. But here it's
New York or whatever.
Yeah,
I was gonna so with that, I was gonna say, because like when you say that, like I feel if they were like 10 years old, or if they were like the kids were like younger, I don't think it would have the same feel to it.
No,
like
and they wouldn't be able to go do stuff on their own.
Right. And I think that's part of the charm, I guess, right? Is the fact that you're able to like, you kind of age the kids up a little bit so that they're, they're still not super old or whatever, but at the same time, they're like old enough to go and kind of get into some trouble or whatever that like helps sell helps sell it essentially, right? Because it's like, yeah, you don't have too many 10-year-olds venturing into the sewers or wherever they're venturing into, you know what I mean? They're still pretty much kind of at home with a leash or whatever for the most part. Maybe a 12-year-old, babysitter or something. But yeah, it's just one of those ones that like, 16 probably seems about the right age of, that whole calling your peers scaredy cats and all that kind of stuff. You ain't gonna do it, and just them having just enough bravado to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna do it. Let's do it. So, that peer pressure, I think, comes into play a lot, especially when you're like older, right? Or like a, middle to older teens. So they can definitely play off of that. And I think that works heavily in their favor versus using, like David said, a 10, two 10-year-olds or something like that. Just doesn't have the same feel. Pretty sure they did that too with the new It's. They made the kids a little bit older because I think in the book, I swear in the book, I think they are like 12 or something like that. Like they're like super young, but
yeah, they're not like teenagers.
Yeah,
they made some good choices in the movie, not including everything like the book. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought they did really well. You could tell, like David said, what book they were pulling from for this one. And even though it's going to be its own little thing, it still has the feel of what it's supposed to be, and I'm okay with it. I haven't seen the other ones like they have, so we'll see what I feel when we get to Monsters Blood. But yeah, no, I thought this one was really good. Grayson, any kind of like final thoughts as we wrap up episode 1?
In all honesty, when I was going through it, episode 1 at the end of it got me stoked to see the rest of the series. Left on a hype train, so I kind of just kept the train rolling. It was a lot of fun to just see at that time I thought was going to be a very interesting take on this world and these storylines. I thought it was going to be much more of a in-depth analysis on some of these stories, or at least prolonged, look at these stories. But kind of as the season goes on, you do feel them kind of shortened through and run through pretty quick. But at the beginning, it is a very nice. It built me up and kind of hyped me up for the rest of the show.
Nolan, what about you?
Well, I've only got one episode in, but it is one of those ones that so far, like because this is one of those stories that I don't think I ever did get to read like as a kid. So this is new for me, right? Like this isn't. I don't have that that knowledge base that David does for the like. Oh, that didn't happen. Like that, you know what I mean? So like I get to kind of experience it for the first time. So I've got no gripes with it so far, and it really does make me like excited to kind of like continue like watching it. And it's one of those things like I'll see how the because like I said, I also didn't watch season 1, right? So I don't know how they shot that or how it looks. So like I came into this kind of like relatively fresh. But it's one of those ones that I'm excited to see the rest of it, and I kind of hope that it really kind of continues this pace, where they have good acting, great music, and pretty much all the stuff that they're doing well with their decently like modest budget. But according to David and Grayson, like they seem to keep the same energy, if you will, at least for a couple episodes. So I'm definitely excited to kind of get through it and see what. How the other episodes like turn out.
David, what about you? What were your thoughts on episode 1?
I think it's a very strong start. Definitely, while it's not the exact same as the book or even the old episode, it has the spirit of the same. And I think that's what really matters, making it more modern and everything, that you still keep that feel of what makes Goosebumps what it is. I think they did a great job. I think it's really good. I like how it started. I mean, I had to go right into the second one, and yeah, it's like Nolan said, they keep up the energy, they keep you wanting more, and I'm excited to watch the couple episodes I've left to see.
Yeah, that's important. That heart. So, like David said, the heart and the spirit, man, it's got to be there sometimes. And it's one of those ones that like, because you can try and you can fail and it not be good or something like that, but like if you keep the same like heart or the same spirit, nobody's ever going to give you a problem, or say too many bad things about you. It's like, at the end of the day, they'll be like, well, it wasn't great, but you tried. You know what I mean? You tried to give us whatever, product that was what we expected or what we tried. Having that heart and that spirit. And I think that counts for a lot. So it's one of those ones that it, like you said, it keeps that spirit and just wanting to still be Goosebumps the whole time, then it'll be awesome.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like it was made by people that understood Goosebumps, perhaps even read it as a kid themselves, so they knew what Goosebumps should feel like, even though it's an original story, definitely adapted by the book. I thought it did really well.
I might be wrong if you want to fact check this real quick, but I think the director of the Jack Black Goosebumps movie is the same one who's doing this series.
Interesting.
I have Jules. Hold on. I got you. It was just Goosebumps in the movie, right?
Yeah, Goosebumps the movie came out in like 2019, maybe.
Yeah, so Rob
great.
Letterman, he's a huge producer on this, one of the main writers too.
And he was the director, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
the
the
show.
first one was 2015. Whew.
So I think he had a good relationship with R.L. Stine and clearly knew the source material very, very well when he did that movie and everything. So I think he was a great choice to step into this. I don't know if he did season 1 of the show. I'd have to check that. But him being, I did see that he was part of this one, and I think it's shown. I mean, he's definitely aged it up a bit because the Goosebumps movie was a little more family friendly. Kind of like Goosebumps itself, which is fine. But
I think they pitched it that way on purpose, though. Like anytime, like realistically, anytime you have Jack Black in there, you're not probably looking for the most serious / dark horror-y of horror type stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and that's why it's on Hulu instead of Disney Plus. You know.
Yeah.
But no, I think he has nailed it, and I think they're going to give him another shot, another season if this does well, which, in my opinion, so far it has been.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see kind of the reaction from other people, because I know it all dropped on the one day, but I'd be interested to see what the numbers are showing, because I feel like it's got to get a season 2. I mean, David, compared to season 1, is this better than season 1?
I think so. I think they've leaned more into the Goosebumps a little better. They're still doing an original story like they did with season 1, but season 1 was a little more dependent on that original story, I think. This one, they've taken a little bit more from the books, so I think that'll help them. I haven't finished it yet, so I can't say for sure, but if not better, it's on par.
Well, everybody knows you have a better product when you stay close to the source material.
Yeah, and they've done a good job of staying close, but still being their own thing. So
Sorry, not everybody knows that, but you know the ones
you would think by now
that should, you know what I mean. Some of the good ones know that, but yeah, I guess technically that's a big umbrella. Can't really make that statement. Everybody knows, because some do not.
Right? Yeah. No, it's Hollywood is a fickle thing. Grayson, rating and recommendation just for episode 1.
Episode 1, I'd give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. If you love Goosebumps, this will definitely get you back into the spirit. Honestly, as soon as I saw the first episode, I kind of started looking through and honestly want to start buying the books again, just to read back through those and kind of get in the feels, bring back the nostalgia a little bit. But yeah, absolutely. If you love Goosebumps growing up, the spirit's there, definitely worth checking out. Even if you weren't, it's a good, intro to horror for those that don't want to go too dark, but like those kind of themes. So it's good for the age range it's shooting for. And yeah, so I'd check it out for sure.
David, what about you?
Yeah, I would definitely say solid 8. Very strong beginning. Part 2 was really good too, so they kicked it off really well. If they were doing a weekly thing, I think it'd be enough to bring people back. Great nostalgia, still being something fresh. I got no complaints so far.
Nolan?
Well, now I sound like I'm just copying everybody at this point. Yeah, same. I definitely give it about an 8. It's one of those ones that it's great, solid start, realistically. And I say that because there's not a lot of shows these days where I watch the first episode and I'm like, okay, I really, really want to continue watching this. That's very rare, right? Especially in shows these days, especially for me, just because it's. And here's the thing too, is I have a 3 episode rule, right? So it's one of those ones that if I was just finding this by myself, you know what I mean? Oh, this looks interesting, kind of thing like that. I'd probably turn it on and watch it, but I give the show at least 3 episodes. And if they can't hook me in, if they can't get me to understand the plot or the characters or anything like that by the 3rd episode, then I don't think they deserve my time. And it's one of those ones that they've got me on the 1st episode. I want to continue watching this one and want to keep going. So that's definitely a solid 8, in that range or whatever. Because like I said, there's not a lot of shows that have done that lately. I think I've started 4 or 5 recently that I was like, I was like, and now I got to give them like 3 episodes. So, just to follow my own rule kind of thing. But yeah, and then it's one of those ones that I think that's a pretty solid, like a fair chance, right? Like a fair shot. Maybe even a little bit more so on this, since there's 9 or 10 episodes, I think. Is it 12?
I think it's 8.
Or 8. Okay, so so you're almost halfway through the show at this point, right? So like it's even a little more crucial that being almost halfway through the show, if you're can't tell me what's good or get me hooked or watching whatever character or liking stuff, then yeah, you definitely don't deserve the rest of the time, the rest of those episodes or whatever, especially if you're already like halfway through the story. So but yeah, overall I give it an 8 out of 10, and I look forward to doing this every week with you guys to kind of dissect these episodes.
Yeah, no, I would say a solid 8 as well. I think just everything worked really well, be it the casting, the music, the cinematography, the coloring of the actual film itself, the feel, the atmosphere. I mean, everything worked in it. Much like everyone said, it made me want to go on and watch. I didn't yet, but I was like, I could see myself binge watching this show, and it's not something I do often is binge watch. So right there, I think that has to say something. But I think it did really well. It captured the spirit of Goosebumps, and like Grayson said, makes me want to kind of reread the books, at least the ones that are titled right now, and then maybe just read them all again at some point. So yeah, I think it did really, really good. Nolan, anything people watching should be on the lookout for from you?
Oh, speaking of, no, we actually just shot a whole bunch of stuff. What's today? Wednesday? Yeah. Last Friday. So we actually got this usually never happens, but we have an entire episode done in one day. Or at least shot in one day, not obviously done. Like you gotta edit and do all that kind of stuff. But that usually never happens. Like usually it's a couple day project or something like that. But this one was relatively like bottle episode-ish, but yeah, it's one of those ones that we got some stuff finished. So like Mike, I think, is working on it now. I've actually been getting pinged by Aaron sending me videos while we've been doing this the whole time. So it's one of those ones that I'll share one of them with you later, Keegan, so you can get a little sneak peek. But for the most part, yeah, it's one of those things that we're getting some stuff done here. So we'll have a new episode relatively soon.
And where can they find those if they want?
They're going to be on YouTube and Rumble. And it's the channel is Ghostbusters TXRRT on YouTube and other places. I'm pretty sure that's what it is on Rumble as well. And then Ghostbusters TX on Instagram. And I'm sure they'll send out the links or put out stuff whenever we actually get the episode finished with the effects and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope people like it. It's probably some of the most ridiculous stuff I've done to date. So,
yeah, no, very excited to check it out. David, what about you? Any episodes the fans should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, we should be back on weekly episodes starting next week with the first Abnormal Voyages of 2025. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but it'll be something interesting. So be there.
Or be square at the Rap Battle Extravaganza.
Hey, whoa. We don't have anything against squares. It's a perfectly good shape, okay? We don't shape shame.
There's a whole song about it, It's hip to be square.
I need you to calm down. Thank you.
I don't look calm.
Grayson, what about you? Anything the fans should be on the lookout for?
Yes, Nosferatu review drops Saturday on _Grayman. And we'll be going live with that, so look out for that.
And like we've kind of mentioned, we'll be doing this weekly, so stay tuned. Next week we'll be doing Basement Part 2, so keep an eye out for that. As well as Monday we'll be doing Pop Culture Podcast on Wolfman. So hopefully it's good. The last trailer kind of looked good, so I'm cautiously optimistic going into it. I know it's not going to be classic Wolfman, but keep an eye out for that. And I think Friday as well, we got a Best Burger episode going live. Could be controversial. We're talking about a place that always hits the top 10, and it's going to be controversial. So just stay tuned, watch that. But yeah, for more, yeah, it's going to be controversial. We've said it multiple times in the episode. I know.
Is it somebody trying In and Out and saying it's garbage?
No, we've limited to only like it can't be a chain restaurant. It has to be like mom and pop shops.
Oh, so it's like local Colorado?
Yes. Yeah. And this one has always made top 10 lists in any top 10 burger list. We went to it, we like it, but we don't know if it's in the top 10. So I'm sure that will go over well. We'll find out. I did read the
I'm on the
history book
edge
as
of my
well.
seat.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys want more Goosebumps ones, once they go live, you'll see a link to the top left. More just regular Culz reviews on the bottom left. More from us here at Culz on the right. And don't forget to hit that like, give us a subscribe, make sure to follow all these fine gentlemen, and let us know what you thought about Goosebumps Episode 1 in the comments below.